Hello and welcome back to South Bristol Chess Club Championship 2013. We're returning to Group A now for the round 3 match between Bob Radford and Stephen Meek. Now Stephen Meek, the group favourite, still has chances of progressing from this group, but he's up against it as he's very much in favour of what happens in Ian Bourne's game, because he only has 1 point from 2 draws. So he must play for a win here. Bob Radford, on the other hand, is unfortunately already out of the tournament with a draw and a defeat. But he has nothing to lose and therefore is likely to play with more freedom. So an intriguing match is on the cards then, with Meek needing to win and Radford playing without fear. Let's go over to the game, which is about to start, and see how they get on.
It's the third and final round of Group A. I'm playing Stephen Meek, rated 203 and one of the top players in our club and joint favourite with Tyson Mordew to win this tournament. Stephen requires a win. I can't even qualify now because I've blown my chances. But it's a big game for me playing Stephen, and I've only played him once before, and that was in the quick play last year in the summer, and he beat me. So I've got a tough task, but I'm going to employ the Leningrad Dutch reversed as a surprise weapon, and hopefully, you never know, Stephen may not have played against it too often and may use up some time, if nothing else, trying to find out how to combat it. So we'll open with F4, the Birds, Leningrad Dutch.
Okay, tonight I'm playing Bob Radford, and he's just opened. I'm playing the black pieces, and he's just opened up with F4, the Birds opening. I've just touched the wrong piece, so I'm going to play Knight F6, which is also very sensible. It's a pretty solid move. It's pretty standard in these sort of positions. So I'll play Knight F6.
Stephen has replied Knight F6, so I will continue with Knight F3.
White has just played Knight F3, which is very sensible. So I'm also going to try and play a sensible move back and stake some sort of claim in the centre and play C5.
Stephen's second move is C5, which gives him now control of both E4 and D4. Temporarily, that is. So I will continue with G3.
White has just played 3G3, so in effect he's playing a Leningrad Dutch, a tempo up. So on those lines, Knight C6 must be correct, so I'm going to play Knight C6.
Yes, Stephen's third move is Knight C6. So I'll play Bishop G2.
White has just played 4 Bishop G2, which is a perfectly natural move and what I expected. I'm also going to fianchetto, as this is normally a sensible way to develop these sort of positions. So I'm going to play 4 Pawn G6.
We will just continue with D3, which is an important part of the development as we look to get a pawn thrust going through the middle very soon. So D3 is my move.
White has just played 5 D3. I expected either D3 or castle. It doesn't matter which way, they're always going to get played in this kind of position. Obviously he's trying to stake a claim in the centre with E4, so I'm going to stake my own claim and play 5 D5.
Yes, of course, he's replied with D5, so that stops me playing E4 at this point, so I will castle.
Right, White has just played 6 castles. A sensible move in this type of position, often played in Birds defence and also in the Leningrad. Obviously this is a bit of a reverse type Leningrad position. I'm going to play 6 Bishop G7, which is the only sensible natural move. So 6 Bishop G7.
So my next move has to be Queen E1, a very important move which helps assist the thrust in the middle. So Queen E1.
White has just played 7 Queen E1. Again, a familiar ploy in these type of positions. Obviously, Knight B4 is just met by Knight A3, and then a future C3 kicking the Knight away. So the sensible type of move in these sort of positions is just get your king safe and get him castled. So I'm going to play 7 castle kingside.
I'm going to have to get C3 in now. That just prevents Knight C4. It also blunts the power of the bishop on the A1 H8 diagonal that he has, which we would call a dragon bishop if it were a dragon opening. So C3.
Right. White has just played 8 pawn C3. So now I've got to do something with my structure, and my light square bishop needs to be developed somewhere. If it goes to G4, it can always get kicked around with H3 or Knight E5. And Bishop F5, I've always got to be looking out for E4 breaks. So I'm just going to play a sensible type move and try and get the bishop on the diagonal and play pawn B6.
Stephen's played B6. I'm going to play Knight A3. We're just both continuing with our development at the moment, so Knight A3.
White has just played 9 Knight A3. Again, a standard sort of move in these sort of positions. And now I've got a situation where I need to make decisions. I'm looking at Bishop A6 with the idea that White can no longer play E4 because I can just take, and then a rook on F1 and be on pre. So Bishop A6 is a sensible type of move in this position. But I'm also looking at Rook E8 with the idea of playing E5 myself. And if I can get E5 in, I should have a nice position. And obviously at E5 a pawn takes, and then a Knight G4. If I can land a knight on E5, I should be sitting pretty well. So I'm going to play 9 Rook E8.
Oh, so he's played Rook E8. Well, it's pretty obvious he wants to play E5, but we mustn't allow that if I haven't played E4 first, so I must push my E4 pawn and just get that little move ahead of him. E4.
White has just played 10 E4. This seems like the consistent follow-up to White's earlier plans of playing D3 and Queen E1 and feeding Chetwin. So I'm going to take the pawn on E4, which also seems consistent. So D takes E4.
Yeah, as expected. D takes E. I play D takes E. He's probably going to either play bishop to G4 or most likely E5. Now, knight takes E5, knight takes E5. It's no good, he just wins the pawn on E5, so D takes E, E5, F takes E, knight takes E, bishop F4, knight takes F3, bishop takes F3, rook B8. I can play maybe knight C4. Yeah, it looks good. Let's just play pawn takes pawn then. D takes E.
Right, White has just played 11 D takes E4, which is the only sensible move here. And now I'm looking at my pieces. They look a bit clumsy, especially on the light squares with this bishop on G2 raking down. Ideally I need to shut off that diagonal if I can. If bishop B7, White can play E5 and he's got a lot of space. So I'm going to play E5 myself. So 11 E5.
Okay, Stephen's pushed a pawn to E5. This is what we expected. I'm going to have an isolated pawn now. If I allow him to take on F4, that doesn't look very nice. I think I have to strike first while the iron's hot. So F takes E5.
White has just played 12, f4 takes e5. And now I've got a situation. If I recapture on e5 with the knight will again recapture, then the rook takes on e5, and then he can play bishop f4, and everything's been developed with tempo and also a big initiative. I'm not liking this position much with that going on. So the earlier idea was to land my knight on e5, so I'm going to play knight g4.
Okay, so Stephen's responded to my pawn takes pawn with knight g4. I must admit I was expecting knight takes e5. Now this, how do I deal with this? Well, what's very nice is I have an open d file, so if I were to play bishop g5, that could set him a real problem for his queen, because this open d file allows me to play rook d1 after, and then I am gaining some real tempo. I'm beginning to play forced moves here against him, and if I can make him go where I want him to go, then this is when you know you have the initiative in a game, and you're starting to get a real advantage. So I'm going to play bishop g5. How's he going to respond to that? If he goes queen to c7, which looks to be his only good move. Oh, but wait, knight c4, he won't like that. He won't like that at all. So I don't think he would do that. Maybe he could bring his queen down the file, but he's still going to be open to an attack on rook d1, so and possibly retreat to a6 now. I don't know. Surely he won't play f6. f6 would not be good, because he takes f. I remain a pawn up, and if he retakes the pawn, I can just swap, and this is looking really good for me. So, okay, bishop g5 then.
White has just played bishop g5, a very sensible move. When I thought about this position back on move 9, when I played rook e8, I only looked at bishop f4 and then the knight capturing on e5. Bishop g5 does indeed look very much stronger, and now I've got a situation. After something like queen c7, the knight can come to b5, and then d6, and that looks horrible for me. My intended move was queen d3, but the more I look at it, c4 can be very embarrassing for my queen, and it could give me a lot of problems. The position is possibly bust now already. I think I'm going to jettison the pawn and see if I can drum up some play by mixing up a little bit. So I'm going to play 13 f6.
Well, he's taken a lot of time here before he finally decided to play f6. I think he's struggling. I do. He's not looking happy. He's taken over 3 minutes to reply to this move with f6. I don't think he was expecting bishop g5. He knows that rook d1 is going to come after pawn takes pawn. I'm getting very encouraged, because he also knows I can play knight into c4. This is just looking so good for me. Everything, I can just force him to do what I want, and to be able to boss a 200 player around like this is quite exciting. In fact, I've got quite a lot of nervous tension in me. I'm going to play pawn takes pawn, and I'm going to get up and have a walk around the room, because I'm getting a bit hyper here. So e takes f.
White has just played pawn takes pawn, which I expected. He's just a good pawn up with a good position move, but I'm going to try and mix it up as best as I can. Obviously, I don't like playing knight takes f6, because there's future e5s in the offing. So I'm just going to try and get off this dark square bishop and get my piece out as quick as I can. So I'm going to play bishop takes f6.
Well, as expected, he's retaken the f pawn with his bishop. I've got a lovely file for my rook on f1 going down the board when I move the knight, I've got rook d1. That means my pieces will be beautifully developed. Have a very strong position now. I've just got to be sure not to allow Stephen back into this game. Now I've got the advantage, because he will certainly try if he can. He doesn't get a rating of 200 for nothing. So what do? Do I play bishop takes bishop? And then he plays probably queen takes bishop, and then his game seems to be free. So no. I think I play rook a to d1 first, make him move his queen, then bishop takes bishop, queen takes bishop, which means he's then had to move his queen twice, but not till after I've moved my rook, which is good. But what do I do after rook a d1? He will probably play queen e7, bishop takes bishop. What will he do? We could play knight takes bishop. I can push the pawn on e5. That would be good against the knight. Then opens up my bishop on g2 on the h1 a8 diagonal. I can flick the knight into c4. Oh, yeah, knight into c4, and then I'm winning. I'm definitely winning this. So I'm going to play rook d1.
White has just played 15 rook a d1. I don't like queen c7 with knight b5 coming in. I'm kicking my queen about even more. I'm losing a lot of time here. I'm going to try and do something. I'll keep my queen active and get my queen right out of the way of everything. So I'm going to play queen e7.
Yes, queen e7 as expected. Now we have to exchange bishops, and we will assess our position from there.
White has just played bishop takes bishop. I don't really like queen takes bishop with the ideas of knight d4, hitting my queen, and then knight takes c6, queen takes and e5, and my rook on a8 is getting embarrassed. So I better take with the knight. So I'm going to play knight takes bishop.
Our club trainer Tyson Mordew has often shown us that there's a point where you have to stop and assess your position and find out whether your pieces are placed nicely on the best squares. Also to assess your opponent's position, to see where he stands with his pieces and his game. So all my pieces are well developed. My knight is a bit out of it on a3, but it's got lovely squares on b5 and c4. He certainly can't do anything about me going to c4 at the moment. I've got an extra pawn. It is a weak isolated pawn, but it's going to serve a good purpose once I push it to e5, because that will open up my h1 a8 diagonal for my bishop. He has a knight on c6 that is unprotected. His rook is on a1 is poor. His bishop on c1 is not yet developed. So he's in a lot of bother here. My king is safe. I've got my rooks both developed in the centre of the board for my queen. I'm very happy with this position. So after assessing my position, I'm going to play e5 with great pleasure. e5.
White has just played 17 pawn at e5. My position's looking pretty horrible. I've got a lot of holes at the moment. All I can do is really try and mix it up. So the best way to mix it up would be to stay as active as possible. I'm going to play knight to h5.
Okay, so Stephen's gone knight h5. I'm not sure why he's gone out there instead of d7, because I don't think he intended to play his bishop out onto the c8 h3 diagonal anyway, more like bishop 8 a6 hitting the rook. But in saying that, maybe his plan is to go knight to g7, to f5 or to d6, but it's all too slow and takes too long, and he's already behind in this game now, and I'm quite happy seeing his knight out there. He can stay there for all I care. My main concern now is to keep the attack going. This again is another very important point that our club trainer Tyson Morger has pointed out, that when you have the advantage and you have your foot on the opponent's neck, it must stay there. Don't allow them to get back up. So I have to keep playing forcing moves, I have to keep playing aggressively, and I can either go knight c4 with the threat of rook into d6, or I can play, better still, knight into d4. Then if knight takes knight or pawn takes knight, I've got bishop takes rook. I'm not too happy about leaving my knight on f3 because of bishop g4 pinning the knight to the rook. That would be annoying. So I'm not going to allow him to do this. It's also giving him a chance to get his bishop out and get his rook on a8 moving. And this is the very thing Tyson has taught us about, that we must keep our opponent in a passive position as much as possible. And so knight d4.
White has just played 18 knight d4. An obvious but sensible move. I haven't got many options here. I think taking the knight seems to be the sensible move, so I'm going to play pawn takes d4.
Yeah, Stephen has reluctantly chose to play c takes d4, taking off the knight. That now means I can play bishop takes knight on c6, pinning both rooks. I'm a pawn up, and I'm now going to get the exchange as well. So my position is improving more and more and more, and he doesn't seem to be able to do anything because he still has this awful rook on a8 and bishop on c1, which is still undeveloped. I don't know how this has happened really, but I think I might have to pinch myself in a minute to make sure that this isn't just some dream, and that I'll wake up before I see the end of it and gain the victory I want. So bishop takes knight.
White has just played 19 bishop takes knight. So I'm going to try and play some quick and sensible moves here to try and get a bit of time on the clock. Ideally, if this bishop does exchange off with one of the rooks, and I've got my light square bishop on, there's a lot of light squares I can play on with the bishop. Maybe the bishop's going to be not so bad against the rook here. So I'm going to play bishop a6.
Yeah, Stephen's played bishop a6, hitting my rook in response to my bishop hitting his rooks. But there's nothing to worry about. I can just play maybe c4. That looks quite good. That just shuts his bishop out, makes it look quite miserable on a6. I'm still going to win the exchange whatever happens. Yes, I think I'll play c4.
White has just played 20 c4. A fairly sensible move. I think he's just trying to stymie my any counterplay I've got. I was expecting bishop takes a8, and then obviously if I play bishop takes f1, he can then play bishop d5 check and then pick up my my bishop on f1 as well and be a piece of the good. The c4 seems sensible. It's not a bad move, and I'm going to try and play a sensible move, as good a move as I can, and play rook a d8.
Yes, Stephen has played rook a d8, so bishop takes d8.
White has just played bishop takes the rook on e8. Obviously the rook's always going to be a good piece, but I'm not overly concerned. My idea was to mix it up as much as possible, and for the exchange I've got a light squares to play on, but I don't want to give away too many pawns, so I'm not going to take with the rook. I'm going to take with the queen because I want to keep that pawn on d4. So I'm going to play queen takes bishop.
Yeah, Stephen has retaken the bishop with his queen, so he can keep his castle defending his d-pawn, which is his only counterplay at the moment. Now my only weakness is on the white diagonal, the b7 h1 diagonal. It's very important that don't let him get his bishop and queen on that diagonal. Otherwise he would have some real counter threats. So queen e4 looks good. It stops his bishop from going into b7. It gives me a double attack on his d pawn. And my queen is central, which is very important. It's the best place I could possibly have it at this time. So queen e4.
White has just played 22 queen e4. A sensible move. He wants to cover the diagonal and also threaten to win a pawn on d4. It's a pawn I really don't want to lose, as I'm down a lot of material as it is. I'm going to play a sensible move in this type of position, and I'm going to play queen e7.
Yes, he's played queen e7. I'm not surprised because he wants to play bishop b7, hitting the queen and getting control of this diagonal. I can't allow that. I can't allow that. So what's the answer? I know. Rook takes on d4. And then if he does play bishop to b7, I can play rook takes rook, queen takes rook, and I pick up the bishop on b7. Very nice. He has queen d4 check. I play king h1, and all he can do is either pick up a pawn on b2 or the pawn on e5, but that's no compensation for losing the bishop. So he could play rook takes rook after rook takes pawn, queen takes, and he can then get onto the diagonal with bishop b7, but I'm not worried about that because I've got such a good position there that he won't never be able to get on that diagonal with his queen and bishop. So let's play rook takes d4.
White has just played 23 rook takes d4. I'm not too unhappy about that because it gives me a chance with my reduced material to mix things up a little bit. So I'm going to pin the rook on d4 and threaten to win it, and I'll play queen c5.
Yeah, Stephen's played a nice move here. It's a very strong move. Queen c5 looks quite good, but it's a bit superficial. Though he's pinning, I can play rook d1. Could he then play bishop b7, I wonder? Queen takes bishop, rook takes rook, rook takes rook, queen takes rook, and then it's queen and knight versus queen and knight. No, I don't want that. I really don't want that. So what is the answer then? Let me think. I've got to do something, haven't I? Well, first of all, I've got to play rook to d1, and then if he does play bishop b7, I can play b4, and yeah, b4, and that simply nullifies what he's trying to do. Yeah, I'll do that. Rook d1.
White has just played 24 rook fd1. So now after I take on the rook, he can just take back the queen. But I expected that, and I'm going to play a tricky little move. 24 bishop b7.
Yes, he's played bishop b7. So here's the surprise: b4.
White has just played 25 b4. It seems quite a sensible move. I was just getting something going and causing a few problems, and b4 seems to break the pin and force some exchanges off. So I've got no choice here. I've got to play rook takes d4.
Yes, b4 is a surprise because I can tell by his body reaction he wasn't expecting that. He's I think this will have taken the wind out of his sails, just as he thought he was getting some counterplay. That move has just killed it dead. So queen takes rook.
White has just played queen takes rook. Doesn't give me a lot of choice. I'd like to play queen c6, but queen d5 check exchanges the queens off, and and the pass pawns are going to kill me. So I'm going to play the only sensible move I've got, queen takes b4.
Yeah, Stephen's taking the pawn on b4. So yeah, that's good. Queen d8 check.
White has just played queen d8 check. We want move 27. I'd like to resign this position, but as my opponent's got very little time, I think I'm going to play on and keep on trying to mix it up. And maybe if I can get my queen active, the light square bishop might be able to do something. And I've got some sacks on g3 with the knight as well. So for now, I'm going to play king g7.
Stephen's played king g7 as expected. Now I will just check him on c7 and pick up that dangerous bishop.
White has just played queen c7 check. Doesn't give me many options. So I'm just going to play king h6.
Yeah, I'll just take the bishop. Queen takes on b7.
White has just played queen takes bishop. I'm a lot of material down. My hand's forced somewhat. I'm just going to have to take the knight on a3. So queen takes knight.
Okay, he's taking the knight, and I think it's time to re-centralise my queen and keep control of this game.
White has just played 30 queen e4. And I'm down to cheaper one movers at the moment. I'm going to play queen a4.
I'm getting low on time. They say when you're not sure what to do, play a check. You never know, it might be mate. So queen e3 check.
White has just played 31 queen e3 check. Doesn't give me any choices. King g7.
He's hit my rook, so I better just play queen d4 with the threat of e6 check.
White has just played 32 queen d4. Obviously the threat's e6 and the e pawn is going to be a killer. And I've also got there's also threats of queen d7 check, swapping the queens off. So I can't swap the queens off. That's one thing I cannot do. So I'm going to play queen a3.
My time's almost gone. g4.
Right, White has just played 33 g4. Wasn't expecting that. I was quite happy to take on g3 with the knight anyway, just to mix it up with the shortened time of my opponent. So I'm just going to drop them straight to g3 and see if we get some checks going. So knight g3.
e6 check.
Right, very sensibly, White's played 34 e6 check. Obviously, taking the knight would allow me to take with the queen, and after king f1, I've got some checks. White should be okay and should get away with it, but e6 is very sensible. It doesn't give me any counterplay. So again, I'm forced. What I do, I'm going to play king g8.
Queen f2.
White has just played 35 queen f2. Very sensible. You could probably take the knight, but why mix things up when you don't need to? Now White's simply threading queen f7 and rook d8, which is going to be mating. So I've got to do something about that, and I don't want to play queen e7 either, because that gives White the chance to swap the queens off, and the position again will be best for me very quickly. So I'm going to play 35 knight f5.
Okay, let's finish this. Pawn takes knight.
White's just played 36 pawn takes knight, which is a sensible continuation. My position looks absolutely terrible, so I'm just going to be concentrating on one move cheapos, playing on the time. So I'm going to play queen a4.
Okay, another cheapo hit my rook. So queen d4, and that puts me into an attacking mode where I should finish him in 2 or 3 moves.
White's just played 37 queen d4. I'm going to try and get my queen into the mix as much as I can, so I'm going to play 37 queen c2.
Okay, e7 followed by queen d8 and then queen f8, mate. Yep, that's it, got it. It's been a great night tonight. I've really enjoyed this. and I'm really going to be pleased to finish it. And poor old Stephen looks like you've had enough too, so let's put it to bed.
White's just played 38 e7. There really is no counterplay here. There's nothing at all for me. I can't allow the pawn to come to e8 and give it a bit of a queen, so I've got to do something about that. So I'm going to play the queen back to a4.
Stephen's played queen a4, but that's not going to stop me. So I just played queen down to d8 check.
It looks like it's a simple forced mate coming, but I'm going to play on to mate. White's just played 39, queen d8 check. I've got no choice. King g7 or king f7 both lead to the same thing, so I'm just going to play king f7.
Okay, so queen f8 is mate. Let's get down to the bar.
Well, Bob Radford defeats Stephen Meek with the white pieces. There's a turn up for the books. That was probably not expected at all, and for Bob Radford, while he can't qualify, that would have been very satisfying indeed. What a victory. He played really strongly there. For Stephen Meek, the group favourite, surely can only be disappointed not to qualify from the group. He's a resilient character and I'm sure he'll come back from that well, but he could end up bottom of the group. What a turn up for the books in Group A. But of course the group's not yet finished, with Harvey and Bourne to play. Bourne is in command and a draw or a win will see him through. But don't count out Mr. Harvey, he's a tough customer. We'll see you next time for this third round match, part 2 in Group A. Good night.